Give us 30 minutes each week to discover the trends that are shaping the future of retirement with That Annuity Show. We bring you conversations with industry leaders who are revolutionizing financial products, technology, and distribution channels. Hello, and welcome to another episode of That Annuity Show. I am Tisa Rabin-Marshall, your co-host for today, joined by Bruno Karen. Bruno, how are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you, Tisa?
I'm doing good. It's starting to feel like spring around here. I don't know what it feels like up north for you, but
Nope.
looking forward to... Nope, not yet.
Nope, not yet. Nope.
But we're getting a little warmer, so heading into the weekend with some warmer temps, which always gets to be exciting in the March timeframe. But excited to welcome our guest today, Brent Williams, CEO and founder of Benakiva. Benakiva was a startup under the Reimagine program, NASA Reimagine program back in 2019, but we are so excited to be a part of understanding your growth story and welcome you back to share what's kind of latest on the automation and claims front, some of the things you're seeing shift out in the industry. So, welcome, Brent. And with that, I will turn it over to you to give us some background on your career and why you started Benakiva.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This show is always fun to do, all the way back to the beginning back in 2019. But for those of you that don't know, my name is Brent Williams. I'm the founder and CEO of Benakiva. And prior to Benakiva, I owned my own financial advisory firm where I managed a little over 300 million. And when you have an advisory practice that large, you go through multiple carriers, servicing and new business processes. And, on one hand, I was constantly apologizing for an archaic process to which I have no control over. On the other hand, I'm trying to serve, maintain, and gain clients. And so, it put me down this 3.5-year research path where I wanted to identify, would a solution like a Benakiva be successful in the industry? And over that 3.5-year period, I sat with about 147 claims, servicing, and executive carriers, and to decide this was a solution that I was going to build. Brought that solution to the market. We went live with our first client December of 2018, brought it to the overall market January 2019, and we've quickly just grown from one carrier to 3 to 6 to 12 to now, gosh, I don't even know how many carriers we're working with.
Well, that's great. Yeah, congratulations
That's
on
wonderful.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And one thing that struck me is that it was put out that you said, and I quote, "I didn't set out to build a technology company. I set out to fix a broken promise."
Yeah.
And I think it's always very important to get back into fundamentals. Why are we doing this? Why are we selling? Why are we building? Why, who are we servicing? Who's paying what? Who's benefiting at the end of the day? So can you tell us a little more about this broken promise that you're actually fixing?
Yeah. So it started, the research path was started by a personal scenario where, I managed the estate and assets of pretty prominent, one of our House of Representatives here in the state of Iowa. And, I'm driving down the road, going to a client meeting, and all of a sudden my phone rings and I look down and it's the House of Representative. And I'm going, he never calls me, right? Mm-hmm. He knows our plan with his mom and his dad and such, but he never calls me. So I pull the car over and I'm sitting on the side of the road, side of the shoulder, and I answer the phone call. And he proceeds to tell me that mom and dad were in a car accident and dad didn't make it. Mm-hmm. And immediately I go to, remorse and tell him, let me know about the funeral. I'll certainly be there. But as you know, we've got a plan in place for this. And when I get back to the office, I'll execute the plan. And so long story short, I got back to the office and I started the process. They had 9 accounts total. 6 of them were at one company. 3 were at 2 other companies. So basically I'm dealing with 3 companies, starting the death claim process. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I get one of the packets in my office and I open it up and I pull it out, and it's this huge, thick packet. It looks like you need an attorney to go through this thing. But what was really, really odd to me was you pull it out. It's white blank paper, no logo, no nothing, 24 font, and it says death packet. And immediately I thought, we can do better. This industry needs to do better. I cannot go take that to a grieving wife and just show her death packet. This we need to do better. And so it started the idea in my head. That moment triggered the idea in my head. But the real reason why I continued and did the 3.5 years of research was we got all of the accounts taken care of. However, it was 9 months later that we got all the accounts taken care of. And again, I'm going, we can do better. The reality is nobody buys any insurance policy hoping to use it, right? Especially life insurance. Nobody buys it hoping to use it. But they expect when they need to use it that it's handled. The claim is just handled. And it should be, with today's expectations of client expectations, it should be that Amazon type experience, right? I take a picture, I sign it on my phone, I click submit, I'm done. Give me my money. That's how it should be, right? And so when I was looking back on that entire process, all of the things we had to go through, we'd send a document in, they'd send it back. You forgot to check this box here. Okay, well, if the documents were set up to where I needed an attorney to go through them, we know we need to check that box, right? And it was just this long process that really it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
And so that was the reason I started the research. And the interesting about the research was I would call the carriers I did business with. I'd say, hey, my name is Brent Williams. Look at my book of business. And they'd say, how can I help you, Mr. Williams? And I said, I want to come visit the claims department. And they let me. They let me come and visit the claims department. The idea was if they could showcase to our firm that they process claims quickly and efficiently, we would drive more business there, which is a true assumption.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when I really learned, like, this is a deeper problem. It's not just a quick fix. That's when I saw claim staff sitting in front of 3 monitors with 18 applications opened up in each monitor. And I started the 5 why, 5 how process, right? Why? Why so many monitors? Well, I've got to get in these 18 solutions. Why do you need to get into 18 solutions? Because I need some information from this policy admin system. I need some from this document storage system. And the list went on and on. And so I did that for 3.5 years, sitting with 147 people. And that's what created the blueprint for what Benekiva was going to be. That's
Great.
why I did it.
Yeah, so I want to come back to I think what we all know in the industry is some of those legacy system issues and fragmented data. But
Yeah.
before we go there, I want to go back to the idea of this, blank piece of paper, death claim packet, very impersonal, lack of compassion. How did you tackle bringing in the automation and the technology, which sometimes can feel, let's say, less human, right?
Mm-hmm.
Less compassionate with the compassion. So still handling it fast, whether it's the skill set of what the agent or advisor needs to grow in as far as how they're interacting with their clients. But I am curious that sort of contrast, if you will, between bringing in technology but still keeping that human or that compassion through the process.
It's a great question. It's a phrase that we coined, humanimation.
I love it.
It's automation, with the human in the loop if and when you need them. And the reason I say if and when you need them, because there are certain claims in our system that just go through from intake to payout, and a human being doesn't even have to look at them. Right there, it met all the data requirements, it met all the document requirements, it met everything. So there's no reason for a human to look at that, right? And what was interesting when I did the research, one of the things I got wrong in the research was I felt that claim staff would look at Benekiva as job replacement, but it was actually the opposite. The claim staff absolutely love the platform. So when I went back and did some questions after they become clients and they're using the platform, I said, okay, I got this piece. I felt like I got this piece of the research wrong, but you're embracing the platform. And they said, gosh, you got to understand what the platform does is it takes away the tasks of the things that I don't want to do anyway. Mm-hmm. And my mind was blown. I was like, oh my gosh, it makes sense. Technology is an enabler. It's not designed to just replace people's jobs, right? We have yet to have a carrier install Benekiva where they just got rid of people. If you want to use some of those efficiencies, what's more interesting is it gives the human more time to work on the more valuable work, right? Especially in really tough claims where, disability, long-term care, death, you probably want human in the loop on those, right?
Yep,
But
absolutely.
then let's say dental, vision, med stuff, run those through the system. You don't, I mean, those are simple processes. Just run those through the system. So now it gives the humans at the carrier more time, right? You think about a typical claim staff prior to technology, they've got so many claims they got to get through a day. I remember talking to some carriers where they have time limits on call, right?
Right.
Can you imagine a time limit on a call when you're talking to a grieving wife?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's almost like kind of what I hear you saying is the technology can give the productivity or the efficiency on the kind of repeatable process, the
Mhm.
more, kind of tasks. It's freeing up the human to be more human,
Yeah.
right? Like they have more time because what they need to process over here is quicker. They can spend the extra 5 minutes
Yes.
consoling or just walking through the process more slowly
Yes.
for somebody who may be in a, kind of a state of mind where they just need it broken down a little bit.
Right.
I wanted to ask you a question because I think there's a lot of parallels with what you were talking about with the platform you brought in and what you anticipated
Mhm.
those claims reps reactions being to what we're hearing right now with AI and Gen AI and the emerging there, where people are fearful, like, oh, it's just going to
Mhm.
replace my job versus seeing it as an enabler. What
Sure.
are you seeing, hearing on the AI front, either for specifically what you guys are working on within the company or just more generally out in the industry and the claim space?
Yeah. I mean, AI is here to stay. There's no doubt about it. You know, I was on a panel discussion and they asked a similar question, and my answer was I don't think a human being at this point needs to be worried about AI taking their job. What I think they should be worried about is a human who leverages AI taking their job. That's what they really should be worried about. So what that teaches us is dive into the tools, right? And my
Mhm.
answer, I'll give you a perfect example. And you guys have both been in the industry quite some time now, right? Okay, 8 to 10 years ago, there was a technology that came to the insurance industry that was going to disrupt this industry. Every conference you went to talked about this technology. Every panel discussion was talking about this technology. You remember what it was?
Bruno?
No, I'm ashamed to say. I'm sure you'll say it, and a light bulb will pop up. But I'm
Yep.
listening.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, yeah, go
Every
ahead.
time I do this exercise, they go, "Oh my gosh, yes." Okay, 8 to 10 years ago, every conference you went to, and it was this technology was going to disrupt the insurance industry.
So it starts with which letter? Let's play a game.
All right, start with a B.
Give us a hint.
Blockchain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
remember? Every
Yep.
conference was
Yep.
talking about it. It was going
Yep.
to disrupt this. It was going to disrupt that.
Yep.
Right?
Okay.
My answer back then, when I get asked this question, is the same as it is today. I don't believe any technology is going to automatically come in and disrupt this industry or in any industry. However, I believe what we need to do is test use cases of the new technology.
Mhm.
If you do a use case and it provides true, real value to the business, great. Do more of those use cases. But if it doesn't, move on to another technology, right? So blockchain is a perfect example. There were use cases that would test it. How many people are using it today, right? We don't even hear about it. We don't even talk about it anymore. AI is going to be the same thing. However, we have tested use cases. We dove deep into AI. We built our first AI engine back in 2020.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you, you guys will love this. It was on the death claim process. We built an AI engine to identify whether a copy of a death certificate was from a true death certificate or was it a copy of a copy or was it fake.
Mhm.
Then we would extract the data from the death certificate. So, what we did in the United States, if you know anything about the death claim process, the actual death certificate that you get is embossed.
Mhm. Yep.
So we thought, okay, how can we tell if this is a real copy of a death certificate or not? Well, think about it. Anytime you take a picture, anytime you take a copy, anytime you remember those, we're all probably old enough. Remember the projector, it had a light, you put the clear screen,
Yeah,
clear
little
right, and
marker. Yeah.
posted it up there and your
Project.
little
Yeah, yeah.
marker, right? What did it use to do that? Light, light. What does a camera use? Light. What does a fax machine use? Light, right? What does a copier use? Light. What does light create? A shadow.
Shadow.
So we trained the AI machine to look for the shadow. If it had a shadow, that was guaranteed. This is a copy of a real death certificate. Then we extract all the data from the death certificate. We leverage it in our claims process, right? And we built that back in 2020. So
Yeah,
now,
that's a good point. It's
you know,
it's not it's there are elements of it that feel new, but it is
yeah,
not new now. Like we've been
yeah,
leveraging it in different ways for, 15 years, like 15
yeah,
years, and there's examples of that with some of the things we're used to every day.
yep,
There's a few assistants around. We know the names. Those have been around for a while. We trust them. We use them. We don't think twice about it. So
yep.
it is interesting that the elements that feel new. I want to go to something. So I've seen some things that say, like, from a claims perspective, like exactly what you're talking about. AI can, predict claim complexity or detect missing documentation or flag fraud risks. So some of what you're talking about with the death certificate play, right into that those types of use cases. But what I also have seen, this goes back to the fragmented data comment, is like the biggest barrier to AI adoption, in our industry is not the models or any of the sort of
Yeah,
technology. It's more the data readiness,
yeah,
right? The fragmented data not being in consumable format
yeah.
for the AI engines to process. So just curious your comments on that. I'm sure you've observed a lot of that across the
Yeah.
carriers that you partner with. What kind of, either how are you addressing that, or just comment overall on that reality?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I would argue that a majority of carriers, while they want to try AI, they're not ready to try AI. Their systems just will not allow them to try it. Sure, they can try it on their Copilot, on their
Hmm.
Outlook, and things like that. But to drive true business use cases, you need that structure in place to be able to leverage these tools. One of the things that we built, and I still to this day call it an unintended consequence. Back to the original research, one of the things that we built was, today we call it Benekiva Nexus. But when we first built it, we called it our data configurator and innovation gateway. That tool was designed to allow us to connect to multiple systems across an organization very quickly. Then we could take that data in, do whatever we needed to do with that data, and put it in any type of structure that it needed for the other systems and ship it out to those other systems. So we built that technology to solve our own problem, to connect to the multiple policy admin systems, the document storage systems, all of those things. But what we found as carriers started using the technology was they were using it for more and more items that had nothing to do with claims servicing or asset retention. And we had one of our tier one carriers literally called me and said, Brent, this piece of technology that you have, I mean, we're using Benekiva for claims and servicing, but this piece of technology, this orchestration API layer, you need to commercialize that and go sell it to every carrier out there. So that's what we did. We commercialized Benekiva Nexus. And you'll see marketing come out on this because we just commercialized it, to where we're going to market it in the market as an AI tool, an AI readiness tool. You want to do real use cases with that old policy admin system? Great. Nexus will allow you to do that. You want to do use cases across claims and your models and pricing? Great. Nexus will put you in a position where you can do that.
So can you walk us through a little bit, precisely how your tool can extract information that removes kind of the mundane tasks that claims people used to do or still doing to this day? Because you kind of dwelled on some of those, but I do believe that it would be beneficial for us to know like a little more on that.
Yeah, specifically around complex claims. So when we talk complex claims, you're talking annuity claims, disability claims, long-term care claims. Those can be very complex claims. And I've always said that our system was designed for complex. And simple claims, we just run those through the autoflow engine. A human being doesn't even need to look at those. Complex claims, though, are where you get the true value of AI. I'll give you a perfect example. When you're doing disability claims or long-term care claims, for example, a lot of times when that process starts, you're going to want to retrieve medical records. You've got thousands and thousands of pages that you're going to have to go through, or your claim staff, or sometimes they route it back to the underwriting department. That's a perfect use case for AI, because AI can, once you got the AI agent trained really well, that AI agent can go through thousands of documents in seconds. If I'm the claims staff or underwriter or claims manager, whatever, it would take me weeks to go through that. same information. Now, granted, you still need the human in the loop. You still need, that's why I say humanimation, right? You still need human in the loop because while AI is great, it's not a human, and it's not there. Will it be there? Maybe someday, but it's not there yet. So you still have to have that human in the loop to be able to digest the summaries and everything that it's done for you. But we leverage that. That's a perfect use case, though. We leverage it right now. Once those documents come in, they go through, it gets summarized, brought to the claim staff. Now the claim staff can really work with the documents. They can ask questions. Okay, great. You mentioned post 2019, this person's medical records say something about smoking, right? But yet this policy was put in place in 2020, right? Those are now insights you can say. You might not even be needing to pay that claim, right? Because if you found out that the person's medical records show that they've been talking about smoking, but yet they said they didn't smoke,
Right.
that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think we're seeing kind of a calculator moment? Back in the days, they invented the calculator, and I wasn't there to be part of the discussions, but
Sure.
I guess they probably thought that calculators would replace math, and
Yeah.
you wouldn't need mathematics anymore, and that the calculator would just replace all of this.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, in schools they still teach math, and
Yep.
I think it's just a little more advanced. The tools that students and professionals can use are just becoming more and more advanced, and
Yep.
there's just more things we can do. Either and is it to build more engineering?
Yeah.
There's so many fields that we can use math. Do
Yeah.
you think it is the same? Do you think that AI is the same kind of enabler that those past inventions were in the past?
I do. I 100% do. Here a little while back, I took this AI mastery class again, not because I have to do the actual work, but I need to at least understand what the team is telling me, right? And what they're sharing with me. But, our current CTO, I reached out to him. This was probably, I don't know, 9 months ago. I reached out to him and I said, I hear that these AI development tools are getting really good to where they can basically a non-developer can build something. And he said, yeah, it's absolutely true. And I said, well, I just want to test that theory. I said, give me a list of the top 3 tools that you think I should try. He gave me a list. Saturday morning, I sat down and I said, okay, I want to see if this is actually true, right? Does it actually create something? And all of a sudden I look up and it's 7 hours later and I built a beautiful site. And I'm going, holy crap, like this is so cool. Now the reality was back then, and when I say back then, I'm talking 9 months ago, right? Mm-hmm. Back then they were really good at building a mock-up, but they weren't good at building the back end and making it a true product. Mm-hmm. Still to this day, I think those tools are not to the point where you can 100% eliminate the developer out of the picture. So to answer your question, I think you're absolutely right. I think these tools are just that. They're tools. And how you want to leverage them or how you want to, use them in your day-to-day, that's up to you. AI agents, for example, everybody's talking about AI agents, agentic agents, whatever you want to say. The reality is those are not very difficult to build. I've got 4 of them running just to manage. I got one that manages my calendar. It manages my emails. It tells me which one emails I need to look at. I mean, they're not that difficult to build. So I think there's this misconception in the marketplace that the tools are so good that you can just start cutting heads in your department and replace it with technology. I don't think we're there yet. I think if you work with the tools, that they're not quite there yet. You still need the human to guide the tool and say, no, you got this piece wrong. Why did you get it wrong? Fix it. I mean, you still need those people involved.
Prompting in itself. Yeah, the prompting in itself is the new skill, right? Like there's the tool, but then there's the human who needs to learn the skill of how you're prompting to get out of it what you're looking for.
Even that's changed.
Well, right. And that's evolving, right? And even that's evolving.
To me, prompting, everybody was talking about, I'm a prompt engineer. Right? All of a sudden you go on LinkedIn and you see all these new things that I am. I mean, I'm a prompt engineer. I'm this engineer. I'm that. right? The reality is even a prompt engineer, again, 6 months ago, everybody was talking about go learn how to prompt. Well, guess what? Now it's not even that anymore. Now it's reverse prompting, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it changes so dramatically that you got to change with it.
Yeah. It's definitely evolving. I wanted to ask, kind of going back to the pain point you talked about in your opening story, around that client interaction at the point. It's like it's a moment of truth, or it's a brand
Mhm.
moment that death claim experience, whether annuity or on the life side, can be handled in a way to win
Mhm.
that client, for that beneficiary for life,
Mhm.
or lose them, right?
Yes.
Potentially for life, or a really hard road to win that business back. Can you just talk a little bit? I know that that's kind of at the core of where what you were solving for, but
Mhm.
from a advisor and agency, what are some things that they should be thinking about in that interaction, regardless, quite honestly, of the type of process or technology that they have in place? Anything there to share?
I think there's gold for any advisor agent listening to this. I've been in your shoes. I built a very substantial practice. And I can tell you, every single time I was involved in the claim process, it brought me more business. Maybe not right then, right?
Hmm.
But more specifically on the death claim side, I think that's a great opportunity for retention of assets. For example, every single time I was involved in the death claim process at my advisory firm, a few things occurred. One, we replaced a deceased client with a new client. We replaced a terminated life insurance policy with a new life insurance policy because that's the easiest policy I could ever sell. I don't have to explain features and benefits, they literally just felt them. But number three, I always got this one question: what do I do with the money? And that's a completely new financial plan for this beneficiary, which should include products and services from the company we just got the money from, right?
Hmm.
So imagine you have a $500,000 benefit, right? And you give them the Amazon type claims experience, the white glove experience, right? That gives you, the advisor, the opportunity, not the guarantee, it gives you the opportunity to make them a client, right? So imagine we've got a $500,000 death benefit coming, and as an advisor, we gathered, the funeral is going to cost about $18,000. They've got some final expenses they need to handle, some final things they need to shut down. Grandpa's got two grandkids. He wanted to start a college savings account for them. So you take all that in and go, okay, with the $500,000, based on what we know, you might want to put 200 grand in this income annuity, which gets you and your wife this much guaranteed future income, right?
Hmm.
You might put 200 grand in this Model 3 portfolio because that's the risk tolerance that you've shared with us along this process. We're going to start two college savings accounts, 25,000 in each because grandpa wanted them to go to college,
Hmm.
and we're going to put $50,000 in your bank account so you can handle the funeral and the final expense.
Yeah, keep it
So, with
liquid.
a $500,000 death benefit, the carrier now has the opportunity to retain $450,000 of it. If, and here's the big if you provide them a great claims and servicing experience, right? You
Yeah.
can't send a person down a terrible claim process and then turn around and ask to do business with them. It doesn't work. I tried it.
Yeah. And when you explain it that way, it's just like super intuitive, like, but of course, if I break the trust, or but of course, if they, if the sort of they have a sour moment, that's
Yeah,
not going to turn out well. Yet yet it happens, right, every day.
yeah.
So, well, Brent, I appreciate your time today, and definitely great conversation on both your company's, founding story to now. So, congratulations on the growth, and
Thank you.
the next evolution of the products that are coming out soon. Bruno, any final thoughts you want to leave our audience with today?
No, I think the future looks bright. Kids today, they study a lot, they work a lot. We want to provide them a good future as an industry, as a society. So the more we can remove some of those mundane tasks and put them in a position where they actually have to think and use all of that knowledge that they've built over the course of their studies, whether it's our industry, it's another industry, make them think as opposed to just being processors. I think that's great. So again, kudos on the innovation and the entrepreneurial venture, and best of luck with the continuation.
I appreciate it, man. This was fun.
Great. So, Brent, if folks are looking to get in touch with you or Ben Akiva, what is the best way for them to find you?
Very simple. Brent at benakiva.com.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. So thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of That Annuity Show.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
We seek to keep things simple and have your back in the years to come. NASA is headquartered in Hartford, Connecticut. Learn more at nfg.com.